Hi, I'm Annie Sleece, and I'm on the staff at NAMI Delaware. This is a part of a discussion series focused on back to school community resources. We're talking with state agencies who work to support youth and families in Delaware. But before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about NAMI Delaware. NAMI stands for National Alliance on Mental Illness. We're the Delaware chapter of the national organization, which is the largest grassroots mental health organization in the country. We offer support, education, and advocacy statewide to those affected by mental illness. You can learn more about NAMI Delaware by visiting our website. And there you'll also see other mental health resources available in our state. Click the Education tab and then select Resources. NAMI Delaware is not a crisis response agency, but there are resources available to you 24/7 should you need them. You can either call Delaware's Hope Line, or you can text DE to the National Crisis Text Line, 741-741. Today, we're talking to Chris Locke, co-founder of SL24 Foundation. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Annie. So nice to be with you today.
Yes, I'm so thrilled to have you. So you are co-founder of SL24. Can you tell a little bit about the organization and how it came about?
Sure. So SL24 was formed probably in late 2018, and it was after we had lost our son, Sean, to suicide. We did not know at the time, but Sean was suffering with depression and anxiety. And he was one of those kids that everybody loved. He was a great person, loving, caring person, always had a big smile on his face, was a great athlete, had played at the University of Delaware men's basketball team, was captain of the team, three-time academic All-American, got a great job when he graduated from Delaware. So he was this kid that just was bigger than life. But unfortunately, he was suffering in silence with depression and anxiety and never really told anybody about his struggles until we lost him on July 18th, 2018. And from that loss, the community rallied around to try to do something to change the conversation, to begin having an honest conversation about mental illness. The original plan was to just have a fundraising event and then give it to a national organization. But what happened was we found after our first event that the community really wanted us to do something more. So SL24 was formed from that one evening event. And here we are now 2.5 years later, and we're just trying to do our part like NAMI does to raise awareness about mental health and then assist those to get the resources to deal with mental illness. We really have three missions. The first is educate and remove the stigma around mental health issues. So we go around to schools, church groups, organizations, companies, and just speak about Sean's story and then also educate people. And then second is we assist young adults, 14 to 24-year-olds, to get the help they need. So we've created a network of psychologists and therapists that will see friends of Sean on a quicker basis. Usually it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get an appointment, but our network, we can usually get you in between 24 to 48 hours. And then the third is support through Sean's House, which is one of the reasons why we're here today. I know we'll go more into detail about that.
That's great. Thank you. And, it's a powerful way to honor your son, Sean. And I want to thank you on behalf of all of Delawareans, because what you're doing is going to have an incredibly positive impact on so many young lives in our state. And I know it already is. And I can't wait to talk about that more specifically. Can I ask you quickly, SL, I assume that's Sean Locke.
Sean Locke.
24, is that his number?
That was his number. Yeah, so that was his number. And it's kind of taken on many meanings. Of course, that was his number. But we also are available 24 hours a day for any young adult who shows up at Sean's House. We think it's really important to have that component because we all know mental health issues, mental health crisis doesn't happen between 9 to 4 when doctor's offices are in play.
You're right.
Ensure that Sean's House is open 24/7.
That's great. That's great. And I love the dual meaning there. So here we are during COVID, 18 months in, right? And I know that was like you opened the doors of Sean's House during COVID, right? So that has to have impacted the work you're doing at SL24 and then specifically with Sean's house. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It definitely raised unique challenges. We had made a promise to the community we were going to be open by September 24th, 2020. And that was a promise I had made and that we wanted to fulfill. So we opened it up and right in the middle of COVID. And it was definitely a challenge, and we had to pivot a couple times to make it work. But it has worked. And what we've seen is the community has definitely embraced the use of Sean's house and the resources that we have available here for young adults. And, we've been open now just about 10 months, 11 months, and we've seen over 2,400 young adults use the resources, and we've saved 28 young people from suicide. So,
Wow.
I never expected to have that sort of reaction to the opening of Sean's house. We really didn't know what to expect.
Right.
It shows just how much of a need there is in our community, because we're seeing kids from Dover, Westchester, Pennsylvania, Avon Grove, Newark, Wilmington. I mean, pretty much all over the tri-state of Maryland as well. So they're coming from everywhere, and we hope that we're beginning that conversation. The whole purpose of Sean's house was create a safe haven so that young adult could have that first conversation about what he or she was dealing with. And then we kind of help them and point them in the right direction. Sean never really had that first honest conversation for a myriad of reasons. I think one, as a parent, I didn't create an environment for him to really open up about his mental health here at home. But also, he was a student athlete, and athletes have a especially tough time really showing any signs of weakness. What do we tell an athlete? Push through the pain.
That's right.
Suck it up.
Be tough. Yeah.
Be tough. So great things to be a great athlete, horrible thing to tell people who are struggling with mental health issues.
That's right.
So the idea is make a place non-clinical. We almost call it like grandma's house, so that people can come in and feel warmth and welcoming, and then have that conversation. And this place, Sean's house, which is at 136 West Main, was actually Sean's house. He lived here his sophomore, junior, and senior year of his UD career, and it was always a place that had the door open, and friends stopped in at all hours of the night and hung out. And Sean was always there with a big hug. He was a 6'4", long-armed kid, and he always made everyone feel welcome. And that was the spirit we used to open up what's now Sean's house.
That is fantastic. And I guess now it's September now, so back to school season, here we are. Do you see any specific priorities as Sean's house with this time of year?
Yeah, so we knew this year was definitely going to be challenging because everybody's coming back to school. They've been really in social isolation for 18 months. I mean, so if you're a freshman in college, especially, you went pretty much through your junior and senior year of high school, not really developing those social skills. So now you plop down on a major university campus, throw in some alcohol and other items that are here, and it's a recipe for a lot of issues that can pop up. So we know that's happening at the college level. At the high school level, it's the same thing. There's great anxiety, great issues about how am I going to fit in? How is this all going to work out? We as adults have our own issues during COVID. So just imagine you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, and you've got to kind of figure this all out. And you've been pretty much in your bedroom for the last 18 months learning remotely. So we've seen a tremendous, just in the first few days of school being back, we've seen a tremendous uptick here at the house. We had 18 kids here on one day in the last 3 days. We've just had 5 kids come in the last couple hours. And it could be they just need to speak to one of our peers. I mean, go through some of the resources we have. So a kid can come in, grab a cup of coffee and cooking, talk to absolutely nobody. Hang out, study, whatever. We have a library that has over 200 books on mental health issues. They can go in, read a book. Or if they're wanting to speak to someone, we have over 100 students that have been trained now as what we call Peer 24 specialists. And they're here, they're housed here from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And a kid can come in, talk to another peer about whatever they're going through. And our peers have all got real lived experience with mental health issues. So they really can speak from the heart about what they're going. They really have tremendous empathy for the students that come in here. And then we provide resources outside of Sean's house. Do you need a therapist? Do you need a psychologist? And we try to, give those advice to those students. We have plenty of group things going on here. We have a poor pet for poor people that bring in therapy dogs Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We have a yoga class here. We have a self-meditation class, mindfulness class. We have a group for parents who have lost children to suicide. And then we have another group of children who've lost parents to suicide. We have student athlete dinners. Student athletes have a different level of stress than, say, a normal student. So we try to have dinners for them. We tell them, you're not here as a basketball player or a football player or field hockey or volleyball. You're here just as a kid. Mm-hmm. And we don't really care how successful or unsuccessful you are. You're here just to decompress and talk to other people who are dealing with distress. And we're trying to think out of the box. Anybody has an idea, we'll give it. We have ice cream socials. We do movie nights here. Anything to get kids in to feel safe. So they may not have any issues now, but maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months from now they will, and they can come in and use the resources.
Yeah, and they can learn about it to tell a friend too. Exactly. It might not ever be them that uses it, but if they know about it, they can tell someone else.
So many people come in because a friend has walked up to a door.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah. So your work with SL24 is so rooted in your personal experience as a parent. Do you have any thoughts for parents specifically around some of what you've been talking about, around the stigma, around anything you kind of see when working with families that you want to just sort of address?
It's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. As I said, I really personally did not create an environment in my household for Sean to really speak openly about mental health. I was literally the Neanderthal about mental health before we lost Sean. I knew nothing about depression, knew nothing about anxiety, would have said all the wrong things. I would have said to him, suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
What's your problem? Look at all the blessings you have. Look at the success you've had. What are you talking about? You have nothing to be depressed about. And I think a lot of parents, especially fathers with sons, have trouble understanding what it's all about. And it's only really losing Sean and doing research that I realized depression, anxiety, mental health issues, it's a disease. Mm-hmm. And I say many times, it's no different than cancer or heart disease. So where your blood cells attack you with cancer and your heart attacks you with heart disease, your brain is attacking you when you have mental health issues. And, dads especially will say, what the heck's wrong with my son? He can't get out of bed. He can't do this. He can't do that. And I say to them, would you have that same view if your son had leukemia?
Yeah.
And obviously not. We would do anything possible to get our kids the medicine, the doctors, the medical needs fulfilled if they're dealing. And I think, we see this as a moral failing or a character failing, and it's not. It's a disease. And groups like yours and ours, I hope that we change the conversation where we're not talking about physical health and mental health. We're just talking about health.
Health all around.
Exactly. That's kind of my life mission. That we get to a point where we as parents and as young adults can say, I'm dealing with depression. And just like I got a torn ACL.
Right, exactly.
It's a physical thing, and we have to. So I think that's the most important thing. It's you haven't done anything wrong, parents.
That's right.
It's your fault that your kid has a mental health issue, and it's not the kid's fault either.
No.
But if you don't have that honest conversation, if you don't open up the door and really look at it that way, what you're going to do is have that person suffer in silence. And Sean did. I mean, I look at all of his success, played in March Madness, was the best student athlete at St. Mark's, all these great things he did. But my poor little boy was suffering in silence that whole time. He couldn't verbalize what he was going through. And, as a father, I'm going, and there were signs, there were little signs, but because I was so ignorant to the disease, I didn't even know how to pick up those little signs.
Right.
And, that's the When you
Right.
lost a child to suicide, that's the woulda, the couldas, and the shouldas that will haunt you in the middle of the night.
Right, right. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's got to be so difficult. I have a little flutter in my voice now too. And you and I have shared. We have some common experiences,
Yep.
and I certainly can echo what you said around the parent ignorance. And really, parents are learning on the job all the time. I think that's a reminder we all have to have.
Yep.
Nobody gets a manual where everything is laid out for us and we just read it, from beginning to end. We have to just figure things out. And the work you're doing now is going to save or already is saving so many lives and will continue to do. So thank you so much for sharing that and for reminding all the viewers right now that it's not your fault. It's not your child's fault. It's not your student's fault. It's a health condition.
That's right.
And we can help. That's right. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, before we finish up, I have a couple other things I want to ask, but I know you've hosted some events for educators. I'm a former educator myself, and I would have loved to know that this was a resource I could have told my students about. So can you speak a little bit about what educators can gain from being connected to you?
Absolutely. So we've done a couple events with both teachers as well as counselors and mental health professionals in the school system, where you come in, we give you a nice free dinner from Taverna Restaurant, and we show you Sean's house. And the idea is to build that partnership between Sean's house and educators so that we can be a resource for you. And then we also, as I said, we speak to schools. I've spoken probably to about 15,000 students now around the tri-state area. And we just kind of let them know who Sean was, and then also having a real honest conversation. And we know by doing that, students will go to counselors, will go to a teacher or a coach and say, look, I'm struggling, I need help. And by then just verbalizing, people with depression, it's such a paralyzing disease because they feel bad for having the disease. They why am I depressed? I shouldn't be depressed. So it really does silence them to get the help they need. So the idea of these, events with teachers and counselors, let's start that conversation one-on-one, and then let's really go out and talk to the students. So we really see it as a partnership with educators and Sean's house.
Yes, and I must add that you are an integral part in the passing of HB 100, which is the legislation in Delaware that will bring more mental health professionals to our schools in Delaware, starting with elementary schools for that legislation. But there's more work to be done, and I continue to hope that you and I can continue to partner on that kind of work because it's so much.
With that, and you guys were critical in that, and I look at that as the first step. Let's get the infrastructure bill, and then we really need to have mandatory mental health education from K through 12.
That's it.
So that kid that's
other states have it.
Other states have
Other states have it. If you're watching and you're a legislator, please call us.
Contact them. Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. All right. Well, before we wrap up, two things. If anyone wants to get involved with SL24 or learn more, what's the best way to reach you?
Best thing is go to the website, and there's a way you can just email us and say, hey, I'm interested in volunteering, and then we'll reach out to you. Our organization is 100% base volunteers. We have a couple staff people here at Sean's house, but everybody else volunteers. All those peer 24s that I spoke about, they all volunteer here. So the best thing is to do that, or you can call us on our phone number that's listed here on the screen.
Great.
And we'd love to have you be part of it. Awesome.
Awesome. So I'm asking everyone that we're doing this series with the same question at the conclusion of our talk. And here's the question. If you had one message to give to those viewing right now with regard to back to school time, if they're parents, if they're educators, if they're young people, what would your message be?
Great question. My response would be really have that conversation, that difficult conversation with your kids that you're afraid to really ask, and say, how are you doing? And really ask them, how are you doing? Don't take, I'm fine. Really ask and delve in to how they're doing mentally. What are the issues that are challenging? And then be receptive to their comments. Don't try to fix it. Just try to listen, and then match that empathy with how you're going to help your student, and you'll have a better relationship
That's right.
with your sons and daughters. And I speak from learning from losing Sean. I was this, I'm this tough Irish kid from Brooklyn. So we didn't have a lot of, warm and fuzzies. But I wish I had listened more. I wish I was asking the right questions. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say to parents, because
Thank you.
this is a tough time. This is a tough time for parents, and it's a tough time for kids. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of anxiousness. There's a lot of issues that are affecting all of us, and we just need to really listen to each other.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us today, Chris. And you know that we'll be working with you from here till eternity. We're going to keep working with you. We love SL24.
We love
Thanks so
NAMI.
much.
Thank you so much, Annie. We really
Thank you.
okay.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.